Hello, dear learners. I, Dr. Priti Khalila Raskwa, welcome you all to this session on selective memory and subjectivity. Selective memory and subjectivity are important characteristics of oral history. Oral history relies on individuals' recollection of the past events which are shaped by personal experiences, emotions, and cultural influences. Unlike written records that attempt to present event in the fixed form, oral narratives often reflect how people remember and interpret the past. Individuals may emphasize certain experiences while forgetting or overlooking others, leading to variations in different accounts of the same event. These elements of selective memory and personal perspectives make oral history both complex as well as meaningful, as they reveal not only what happened in the past but also how communities understand and give meaning to their experiences. In fields such as history, heritage studies, and cultural memory studies, scholars increasingly recognize that memory is constructed rather than simply retrieved. Events are remembered differently by different people depending on their social position, experiences, and emotional involvement. Therefore, memory is both personal and collective, shaped by psychological process as well as cultural narratives. Understanding selective memory and subjectivity helps explain how historical events, traumatic experiences, and cultural traditions are remembered in diverse and sometimes conflicting ways. Dear learners, after studying this unit, you will be able to understand the concept of selective memory, explain how subjectivity shapes the construction of memories, analyze how individuals and communities remember events differently, identify psychological coping mechanisms that influence remembering and forgetting, examine how pain, trauma, and emotional experiences influence the interpretation of the past. Now, let me explain the nature of selective memory. Selective memory refers to the human tendency to remember certain aspects of experiences while forgetting, ignoring, or minimizing others. Memory is not an exact reproduction of past events. Instead, it is a dynamic and interpretative process in which the mind actively organizes, filters, and reconstructs experiences. Unlike recording device that captures every detail, human memory selectively retains information that appears meaningful, emotionally significant, or relevant to one's identity. This selective process occurs because the human brain cannot store every detail of daily experiences. Therefore, it prioritizes certain memories while discarding others. As time passes, memories are also reshaped through interpretations, discussions, and reflection. In many cases, people may remember the general meaning or emotional impact of an event rather than precise details. Consequently, memory became a combination of factual recall and subjective interpretations. Selective memory plays an important role in shaping personal identity and social narratives. Individuals often remember experiences that reinforce their beliefs, values, and self image. Similarly, communities may preserve memories that strengthen collective identity while overlooking uncomfortable or contradictory aspects of the past. Because of this, memory is not only a psychological phenomenon but also a social and cultural one. Several factors influence how selective memory operates. First one is emotional significance. Emotions play a crucial role in determining what people remember. Events associated with strong emotions such as happiness, fear, grief, pride, or excitement are more likely to be remembered vividly. Emotional intensity strengthens the encoding of memories in the brain, making them easier to recall later. For example, a person may clearly remember the day they achieved an important milestone or experienced a significant loss. In contrast, routine or emotionally neutral experiences tend to fade quickly from memory. Emotional memories often remain powerful because they are repeatedly recalled and shared, reinforcing their presence in an individual's memory. Then second one is personal relevance. Memories that are directly connected to an individual's life, belief, or identity are more likely to be retained. People naturally pay more attention to information that related to their personal interests, cultural background, or life experiences. For instance, a student studying history may remember historical events that relate to their region or cultural heritage more clearly than distant events that seem unrelated to their life. At the community level, groups may remember events that highlight their achievements, struggles, or traditions while overlooking events that challenge their collective identity. Then, social and cultural influences. Memory is also shaped by the social environment in which individuals live. Families, communities, and institutions play a significant role in determining which events are remembered and how they are interpreted. Public commemoration, festivals, museums, monuments, and educational systems often highlight particular historical narratives. These practices contribute to what scholars call collective or shared memory. Through storytelling and cultural practices, societies transmit certain memories from one generation to the next, reinforcing specific interpretations of the past while allowing other aspects to fade into obscurity. Then, cognitive limitations. Another important factor influencing selective memory is the natural limitation of human cognitive capacity. The human brain receives a vast amount of information every day, but it cannot store everything within equal clarity. As a result, it simplifies complex experiences by focusing on key details or impressions. This process helps individuals manage information effectively but also lead to partial or incomplete recollections. Over time, memories may become simplified narratives that capture the essence of an event rather than its full complexity. Does selective memory demonstrate that remembering is not merely a passive act of recalling informations? Instead, it is an active process influenced by emotional intensity, personal relevance, social context, and cognitive capacity. These factors determine which experiences are preserved in memory and which gradually fade away. As a result, memory reflects not only mental process but also cultural values, emotional attachments, and personal interpretations of the past. Now we shall move to the subjectivity in memory constructions. Memory constructions is deeply influenced by subjectivity, meaning that memories are shaped by personal interpretations, emotions, and perspectives rather than being exact reflections of objective reality. Human beings do not simply store and retrieve memories in a neutral manner. Instead, they actively interpret experiences through their beliefs, cultural background, and social environment. As a result, memories can vary greatly from person to person, even when individuals experience the same event. The process of remembering is therefore interpretative and dynamic. Over time, individuals may reconstruct memories by combining past experiences with present understanding. These reconstructions can lead to changes in how events are remembered, emphasizing certain aspects of while minimizing or forgetting others. Because of this, memory is not fixed. It evolves as individuals reinterpret their experiences in light of new knowledge, emotions, or social influences. Then, personal perspectives. One of the most important factors shaping memory reconstruction is personal perspective. Individuals perceive and interpret events differently depending on their emotions, expectations, and previous experiments. Even when two people witness the same event, they may recall it in distinct ways because they focus on different details or interpret the situation differently. For example, during a social or political event, one person may remember the excitement and sense of unity, while another may recall feelings of tension or conflict. These differences occur because individuals selectively pay attention to aspects of an event resonate with their own beliefs and emotional states. Personal values and expectations also influence how experiences are interpreted and stored in memory. Consequently, memory became a reflection of an individual's viewpoint rather than a complete record of the event. Then, identity and social position. An individual's identity and social position also play a significant role in shaping how the past is remembered. Factors such as gender, class, ethnicity, nationality, and political orientation influence how people interpret historical events and personal experiences. People from different social backgrounds may experience the same historical moment in different ways, leading to diverse and sometimes conflicting memories. For instance, members of marginalized communities often remember historical events through the lens of struggle, exclusion, or resistance, while dominant groups may emphasize narratives of progress or achievements, highlight how memory is shaped by lived experiences and social realities. As a result, historical memory often reflects power relations within society, with certain perspectives receiving greater recognition than others. Then, narrative formations. Human beings naturally organize their memories into narratives or stories that help them understand their life and experiences. This process of narrative formation allows individuals to create coherence and meaning from past events. However, when memories are arranged into stories, some details are emphasized while others are omitted or simplified. Through storytelling, individuals connect past experiences with their present identity and future aspirations. For example, a person may frame a difficult life experience as a turning point that contribute personal growth or reliances. Over time, these narratives may change as individuals reinterpret events based on new insight or changing circumstances. Thus, memory narratives are not fixed but continually reconstructed as people reflect on their lives. Then, collective memory. Memory is not only an individual's psychological process, it is also shaped by social interaction and shared cultural practices. Communities and societies construct what scholars refer to as collective memory, which consists of shared interpretations of the past that help maintain group identity. Collective memory is transmitted through cultural traditions, education, public commemorations, monuments, and storytelling. These shared memories often highlight particular historical narratives that reinforce a community's sense of belonging and identity. For instance, societies may commemorate events that symbolize heroism, sacrifice, or resistance, while less favorable or controversial aspects of history may receive less attention. However, collective memory can also simplify complex historical realities. By emphasizing certain narratives such as national achievements or shared suffering, communities may overlook diverse perspectives or internal conflicts. Despite this simplification, collective memory remains an important mechanism through which societies interpret the past and shape their cultural identity. In conclusion, subjectivity plays a central role in construction of memory, personal perspectives, social identities, narrative processes, and collective cultural influences all shape how events are remembered and interpreted. As a result, memory is not merely a neutral record of past events, but a dynamic and socially embedded process that reflects individuals' experiences as well as broader cultural narratives. Now we shall move to the coping mechanism and memory. Human beings often encounter experiences that are emotionally painful, stressful, or traumatic. In such situations, the mind employs various psychological strategies to protect emotional stability and maintain mental well being. These strategies are commonly known as coping mechanisms. Coping mechanisms influence not only how individuals respond to difficult experiences but also how these experiences are remembered over time. Memory and coping memory closely interconnected. When individuals face distressing events such as personal loss, conflict, humiliation, or trauma, the mind may modify the way these experiences are remembered in order to reduce emotional suffering, rather than recalling events exactly as they occurred. People may unconsciously receive or interpret memories to take them easier to live with. As a result, coping mechanisms play a significant role in shaping the construction and recall of memory. These mechanisms can affect memory in several ways. They may suppress painful details, reinterpret events in a more positive light, gradually fade distressing memories, or transform negative experiences into meaningful life lessons. Although these processes help individuals manage emotionally stress, they also demonstrate the memory is not a purely objective record of the past event but a psychological reconstruction influenced by emotional deeds. Several coping mechanisms are particularly important in understanding the relationship between memory and emotional reliances. First one is repression. One of the most widely discussed coping strategy is repression. Repression refers to the unconscious process through which the mind pushes painful or disturbing memories out of conscious awareness. This mechanism operates as a form of psychological protection, allowing individual to continue functioning without being overwhelmed or by emotional distress. For example, individuals who experience traumatic events may have difficulty recalling certain details or may completely forget specific moments associated with intense emotional pain. While repressing helps shield the individual from immediate psychological harm, it can also create gaps or distortion in memory. Repressed memories may sometimes resurface later through dreams, emotional reactions, or therapeutic reflections, indicating that the memory remains present in the unconscious mind even if it is not consciously accessible. Then, rationalization. Another important coping mechanism is rationalization. Rationalization occurs when individuals reinterpret events in ways that make them more understandable, acceptable, or less threatening, rather than comforting the painful reality of an experience directly. People may create explanation or justifications that reduce feelings of guilt, shame, or disappointment. For instance, a person who fails to achieve an important goal may explain the outcome by emphasizing external circumstances rather than personal shortcomings. Similarly, individuals who experience betray or conflict may reinterpret the situation in the ways that help them maintain emotional balance. Through rationalization, painful memories are reframed so that they fit more comfortably within an individual's sense of self and worldview. Then, selective forgetting. Another coping strategy closely related to memory is selective forgetting. In this process, individuals gradually forget experiences that cause emotional discomfort. Unlike repression, which is largely unconscious, selective forgetting can sometimes occur through or avoidance of recalling certain memories. People may avoid thinking about painful events, avoid places associated with those experiences, or distract themselves with other activities. Over time, the emotional intensity of the memory diminishes and certain details may fade from recollection. This gradual fading can help individuals move forward and prevent continuous emotional distress. However, it also demonstrates how memory can change over time depending on emotional needs and psychological coping strategies. Then, next one is meaning making. Another significant coping process involves what psychologists described it as meaning making instead of suppressing or avoiding painful memories. Individuals sometimes cope by transforming difficult experiences into meaningful life lessons. Through reflection and interpretations, people may reinterpret suffering as a source of personal growth, reliance, or wisdom. Then we shall move to the subjectivity of pain and trauma in memory. Painful experiences are among the most powerful influences on human memory. Events involving suffering, fear, loss, or trauma often leave deep psychological impressions that remain vivid for long periods of time. However, the way such experiences are remembered is not purely objective. Instead, memory related to pain and trauma is shaped by individual emotions, personal reliances, cultural beliefs, and social contexts. This illustrates the role of subjectivity in memory, where the same traumatic event may be remembered and interpreted very differently by different individuals. Experiences of trauma are closely linked to emotional responses, and these emotions significantly influence how memories are formed and recalled. Personal coping abilities, the presence or absence of supportive relationships, and cultural attitude towards suffering can also shape how individuals remember painful events. Consequently, memories of trauma are not static records but dynamic process that evolve over time as individuals reinterpret their experiences. Understanding the subjective nature of pain and trauma is particularly important in fields such as psychology, history, and memory studies, where personal narratives often provide insight into how individuals and communities understand difficult past experiences. In emotional intensity, traumatic events often involve strong emotional reactions such as fear, shock, grief, or anxiety. These intense emotions can make certain memories extremely vivid and long-lasting. Events that provoke strong emotional responses are more likely deeply encoded in the brain, allowing individuals to recall them even many years later. However, emotional intensity does not necessarily guarantee accurate recollection. While individuals may remember the emotional impact of a traumatic event very clearly, the specific details surrounding the event may change over time. As people reflect on their experiences, discuss them with others, or reinterpret them through new perspective, their memories may gradually demonstrate that memory is influenced not only by the original event but also by later emotional and cognitive interpretations. The cultural interpretation of pain. The interpretation of pain and suffering is not purely individual, it is also influenced by cultural beliefs and social values. Different cultures understand and respond to suffering in distinct ways. Cultural traditions, religious beliefs, and social forms often provide frameworks that shape how people interact painful experiences. In some societies, suffering may be framed as a test of endurance, spiritual growth, or moral strength. In others, traumatic experiences may be interpreted as part of collective historical struggles or shaped community hardships. Cultural narratives may therefore influence whenever painful memories are remembered as source of despair, reliance, resilience, sacrifice, or transformation. These cultural interpretations also shape how communities collectively remember traumatic events such as wars, distress, or social conflicts. Memory and healing. Although painful memories can be distressing, remembering and reflecting on traumatic experiences can also contribute to emotional healing and recovery. The process of recalling and experiencing painful memories can help individuals understand their experience and gradually reduce emotional distress. Personal storytelling and written narratives often allow individuals to organize fragmented memories into coherent life stories. By articulating their experiences, individuals may gain a sense of control and understanding over events that once seemed overwhelming. At a broader level, the communities often engage in collective remembrance through memorial, commemorative ceremonies, museums, and historical documentations. These practices allow societies to acknowledge past suffering, honor victims, and promote reconciliations. Remembering painful experiences in such contexts can help transform trauma into shared lessons that contribute to social awareness and healing. Now we are going to conclude this session. Selective memory and subjectivity are fundamental features of oral history. Since oral narratives rely on human memory and personal interpretations, individuals often recall events selectively, emphasizing experiences that are emotionally significant, culturally meaningful, or socially valued. As a result, oral histories may present different perspectives of same event reflecting the storyteller's background, beliefs, and community context. Rather than weakening the value of oral sources, these characteristics enrich historical understanding by revealing how people interpret and remember their past. Selective memory and subjectivity highlight complex nature of remembering. Memory is not a neutral record of the past, but a process shaped by emotions, cultural influences, and psychological coping. Individuals tend to remember events that are emotionally significant or personally meaningful while forgetting or minimizing others. Pain and trauma illustrate the deeply subjective nature of memory. While such experiences may produce vivid recollections, they are often fragmented and continually reinterpreted. Understanding these forces helps scholars and students critically examine personal narratives, historical memory, and collective identity. Therefore, when carefully analyzed and compared with other sources, oral history provides valuable insights into collective memory, identity, and lived experiences of communities. Thank you. Thank you very much.